started coming to the lane with your mum, with your
Mum
family,
and
is that
Dad,
right? And how did they start coming?
Well, we moved up to Allerton. Before that, I think they had been sort of at Windsor Hall Brethren, but also at City Mission. And then we came up here, and I started going to the Sunday school, and they started going to the gospel meetings. And I think my dad hadn't long been a Christian. And then before he left to go to Birmingham, I think he was the missionary secretary for a while. So. And my mum played the organ, and she used to take the primary class.
Yeah.
And Dave Tomlinson used to sit on her knee as a 2 or 3 year old in the primary class.
Dave,
Yeah.
wow.
And where the baptistry is,
Yes.
that was a beautiful parquet flooring, tall.
Really?
My mum and dad, when they were at Long Lane, every week or perhaps every month, they would clean that, put polish down, and then use a buffer thing, wasn't it, to clean it. My mum loved doing that. Never complained, she just loved it. Well, Andrew left when he was probably 30. He married in the lane and moved to America, so he's in Texas now.
And you've got another son, haven't you?
Ian is younger, he now lives in McGull. He used to be at the lane.
Yeah.
We used to have a couple of double-decker buses. You know, the Sunday school was, that large, and we would go to West Kirby or New Brighton or something like that, and take 60, 70, 80 kids,
Wow.
And the parents will
yeah.
come.
I remember doing salad for about 70 parents.
Yeah.
Somewhere, but one.
We used to hire a church there in the park.
Remember one treat I was on, it was before I met you, and we'd been to the beach somewhere, and one little boy, when we got on the sand, he just ran into the sea, shoes and socks on. He'd never been to the beach before.
Oh.
I think Alan Morell was always such a good influence, wasn't
Yeah.
he? And an encourager.
He was a real Bible teacher.
Yeah, and just had the way of teaching the word. But we were away, we used to go on church weekends, have lovely times, and have invited speakers. And one year we had a fellow called Ken McGreevy. He was such a godly, humble man. He was excellent. And at the end of the session, the Sunday, he called the elders together. I mean, he'd only known them for the weekend. And he prayed for each elder, and each thing he prayed for was just spot on for that elder. Couldn't believe it. The gifting, his words of knowledge and prophecy were brilliant.
We did get involved, as time went on and the church matured. The younger people, which I would class us as then, would get involved in other churches. They would have youth works, and some of them were very advanced compared with where we were. So we would go to the church on a Saturday night, Runcorn for instance, or other similar churches that were actually moving on in the spiritual gifts and, the practice thereof.
Wow.
So that was leading us into that area. So and then we would have weekends away with them.
So that reminded me of John Kavanagh was one from
Yes,
Runcorn.
John Kavanagh was a big influence.
Yeah, they used to meet in a cinema, and one time we were sat in the cinema, and the speaker was a well-known fellow, but I can't remember his name.
Yes.
And he suddenly had a prophecy for us too. We were sat in the congregation. I could hardly breathe. I was looking around to see who he was talking to, and it was us. And about we would be used by the Lord in our home. People would come, there'd be tears, there'd be laughter. But it was all in our home. It wasn't anything to do with church. And it happened.
So how did it happen?
Well, the house groups,
Yeah.
we've had house groups for 40 years probably, haven't we? And people coming for prayer, for sort of counselling maybe, or just calling in or staying overnight.
But I valued that as much as belonging to Long Lane.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's hard to say, but
Yeah. No, it's not.
No.
I think it's important to have connections in
yeah.
other churches
Yeah.
and just be
So,
one.
yeah, and some you wouldn't learn anything from, or you wouldn't be stretched or challenged. But you just get linked in some way with others.
Yeah.
And it might only be individuals in that
Yeah.
church. It's not the church corporate there. So.
Yeah.
Think of the links when you do at the park. What do we call that? Fun day at the park. All the churches and
Yes.
other communities involved in that.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
There's an exchange and a challenge, really, in lifestyle, in beliefs, in understanding the scriptures, and all those things challenge you a little bit, and you move on. And
What would you hope for the lane going forwards if you could pass some wisdom on to the next generation?
just that the Lord had His way, would have His way with each of us, and that people would feel free to go elsewhere and look at what they're doing and become involved and share things with them. And if you lose people in that process, so what?
Yeah.
You're just blessing the church, because Long Lane Church isn't the be all and end all. It's the exchange of ideas, and that's how people find wives and husbands.
Yeah.
So, but that means they're finding Christian
Yeah.
husbands and wives, or just Christian friends, so it's all good,
Yeah.
and yet it's not perceived as good in one sense. Some people would say, oh no, you could lose people, we might not get them back. Well, get more people in. It's,
Our friends were mostly Christians. Everything
Yes.
we did was mostly Christian community. And I feel for our young people, the teenagers, there's so much in the world for them now. It's just, I don't know, just pray that they can keep strong and have the support that they need.
Yeah.
And for you, was that support, that being in a Christian community, do you think that was important to you both?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for us it was just the right thing at the right time, and I would say that my growth, and I think I speak for Barbara as well, my Christian growth, came from that interaction with others from outside.